It is my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine. She is the new president, not the brand new, but the new president to us, of Texas Eagle Forum, Trayce Bradford. Trayce, you will find her winsome. She is very strong in what she believes. She can back it up with information and facts. She can back it up with, again, what is constitutional and why we need to care about constitutional law. And Trayce is a homeschool mom. She's a wife, a mother, and she spends a lot of her time when she could be doing something else, fighting for all of us. So Trayce is going to come up and she's going to talk about Texas Eagle Forum's legislative priorities for next session, and I suspect she's going to spend a lot of time on American laws for American courts. Thank you so much, Trayce, for being here.
Thank you so much. I have been looking forward to coming out here. There's just certain groups that you go to and you just know it's going to feel like home. And so I appreciate you've lived up to that just in the little time we've been here. I have to tell you, one of the first people I was told to meet when I got involved more outside the home, we have 7 children, and it wasn't until about 6 years ago that I could actually start to get more engaged, which seemed kind of odd at that point because our youngest was 2 and our oldest was 22. So we've got a pretty big range. But I was told to meet a woman named Joanne Fleming. And this was not, oh, it'd be nice if you did. It was, you need to meet Joanne Fleming. So one of the first times I had the blessing of meeting her was when Kathy Adams asked me to set in for her on the Life, Liberty, and Property tour. And I was seated between, I'm totally new at this, and I am seated between Joanne, it's me, Elizabeth Graham, Tim Lambert, and Michael Quinn Sullivan. And I am feeling like such a baby. And Joanne gets up and does her presentation on the budget. And I mean, the people, I'm watching the people, and their eyes are like this because you let them know. It was exactly what they had billed those tours to be that year of, look, they say what happens in Austin stays in Austin, but we're bringing it out. And boy, did they. And I just remember sitting there thinking, I can't follow that. And as she's talking a while ago, I thought, I have to follow her again. But I will tell you what, she was so gracious to me that evening, and I don't know, sometimes when you reach out to somebody or you just make them feel comfortable, that you just don't know the impact you have. So thank you. I still feel a little bit like, for any of you that knew Kathy Adams or know Kathy Adams, I honestly thought when I stepped into my role at Eagle Forum with her that I would probably have a good 10 years with her at least. I wasn't even looking to move to this role. I still have children at home and loved working with Kathy. She's a wonderful leader. One of the best leaders I've seen she just pulls you up and pushes you forward. And so I was looking forward to being mentored. And I have to tell you, my first session down in Austin, that woman got a lot of phone calls. And I'd walk out of an office going, what's an intent calendar? What does that mean? And she would answer right away. Well, she called last Christmas, right before Christmas, and said she'd been asked to run for a state office. And I was so excited for her. I knew she would do well at whatever God had called her to do. But it didn't occur to me that she would step down from Texas Eagle Forum. And so her next sentence was, well, if I choose to do this, are you ready to take over? And I remember thinking, I changed my vote. You need to stay here. You should not leave. But it was not what God had planned. And so someone asked me earlier how I got here. There it is. He had a plan that I didn't see coming, and my family did. And they have been, I would not be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for my husband and my children. And they are the reason we do this every day, but they're also really my source. Honestly, I got here today because he found it and drove me here. And I was telling someone earlier, I'm technically challenged, so a lot of the things I have to do on a computer, I need my children. So We are a team. With that said, I wanted to give you just a little bit of background. How many of you are familiar with American law for American courts? Okay, good. I've been surprised. We've been around the state a little bit, and it is a little surprising when you go around. And I think just because so much was in the news with Irving and what happened last session, that I kind of assume people know more about it. So I always like to ask now, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of information on American law for American courts, just the background of what has happened. What the goal is that it would protect anyone that was going into court, their constitutional rights. That's really what it boils down to. It's very simple. And so for legislators to not want to pass this has always just befuddled me from the very beginning, because if you read the legislation, it's very clear. This is to safeguard, even if you brought this up earlier, and I remember testifying to Kirk Watson. I didn't know anything about him at that point. I said, even if you disagree with everything I hold dear and believe in, I still want your rights guaranteed when you step into a courtroom. That is the basis of American law for American courts. I will kind of expand on that a little bit in a few minutes, but I wanted you to know, so as you can see, the last two sessions when we have worked on this, the first year we worked on it and really tried to push it, we didn't have legislators that believed in what we were doing, and they just kind of pushed it to the side. That's just a nice way of saying what really went on. This last session, we had Representative Jeff Leach, and we had Senator Donna Campbell. And I will tell you, Representative Leach works this bill so hard, and he does understand what it is about. He's one of the first legislators I ever just went and talked to who immediately had already read the legislation and was very interested, and he is the one that's heading up this bill. Well, you may not know that last session, there were actually 10 variations of American law for American courts. We happen to have the really good one. I'm a little biased, but we also have a team of lawyers that this is some of the, I'm beyond blessed at what God has opened up. We get to work with, if any of you know or are familiar with Frank Gaffney. He was, he was one of the youngest national security advisors for Ronald Reagan. This man, who I love listening to, is actually now someone we talk on a frequent basis, and I'm not sharing this to go, yeah, I hang out with Frank Gaffney. It's because their team, if I walked out of an office and needed any research or any kind of documentation, I could get it within a day from them. One of the biggest opponents to American law for American courts is a group that would sound positive. It's the Texas Family Law Foundation. And when you first hear that, you think, oh, okay, for Texas Family for Law, that all sounds good. Then you realize, I don't know what they're really all about, because they fight ALAC tooth and toenail both years. And we just had an interim hearing. And the guy, one of the top attorneys there, he was there. And what cracks me up is their whole argument is, we don't need this bill. Then why do you spend so much time and effort fighting a bill when I know he lobbies for a lot of other things, but he really hammers down on this bill? Why? If it doesn't do anything, then why are you wasting your time? And if you want to go back and watch that hearing, you really should. We actually, for once, got to come out of a session or a hearing where we won. We were ready, we were prepared, and I want to take you back to, this is why last session we were able to bring people their testimonies. We had the former Inspector General from the Department of Defense, Joe Schmitz. He wrote a testimony on our behalf. We bring in a rabbi who stands firmly for this. He speaks 5 languages. He can very clearly speak to one of the issues that they try to bring up about rabbinic law and bet dins. And I mean, he can address the whole issue about the different religions. You're protected. This bill isn't going after your religion. That's one of their excuses, and we want to be really clear. There's an ecclesiastical exemption, meaning we're not after your faith. We're after the protection and safeguard of constitutional rights for everyone. And, excuse me one second, I have my Marco Rubio moment. I apologize. I have to take medication, and this is one of the drawbacks, and no matter what I do. So my kids like it because it means when we're homeschooling, I have to take a break, and they always love those moments. Even today, when we were going to be gone for a little bit, we doubled up on work yesterday, and we'll do some tomorrow. They were like, "Great, you need to go somewhere? Oh, we're good with that." So they're having fun. It's just very interesting to see, and I want to say you set up so well. We want to be careful when we communicate with legislators. And if we always go in with our hair on fire, we're not going to have credibility. What we want to do and what we're really trying to do, and I think following on Kathy's lead is, we want to be able to not just bring a problem, but also come with solutions. And also be willing to have the information, have studied it. I've learned pretty quickly, do not cut and paste, do not take and share unless you know that you know. I do not want to be the person that's passing on bad information, because especially when you're working with a legislator that maybe is trusting you to help get people rounded up for testimony or whatever, you want to have done your due diligence. And you people don't strike me as people that aren't going to get involved. And just knowing Joanne, if this is any indication of what goes on here in Tyler and in this area, it matters. Your voices matter. And one reason your voices matter is there's a credibility. And that has come from leaders that you send to Austin or that go there, not just your legislative leaders, although you'll have some really good ones. It's people that are out there. We're friends on Facebook. I was so excited to see you in person. And so I want to emphasize as I walk through this, your voice, whether it comes out of one of these leaders, by you backing them, if it comes through an email, if it comes through a phone call, do not disregard that, please. And I will tell you right now, we have legislators telling us, we need you guys next session. It's going to be tough. To Ernie, what you spoke this morning, amen. That is where we are. November 9th, if you're a believer, is the day after November 8th. You're going to get up, you're going to still trust God's on the throne, and you're going to get on your business, because I doubt that for the last 8 years, you've just been sitting around. You've been busy, you've been praying, you've been engaged. Don't give up. Don't look around and feel like we've lost the young ones. I have my moments at times where I feel frustrated that maybe they're losing hope, so they're willing to maybe cross over some, or they want to see more compassion. We've got lots of compassion. We need to learn to articulate it sometimes better, but it's there. And how do we learn to make these connections? When you're working on American law for American courts, one of the things that's interesting is, you go up and you testify. How many of you have gone down to Austin to testify in a hearing? Nerve-wracking. I'm the kind of person that I read the card that you sign in on, and it says at the bottom, make sure your facts, otherwise this is perjury, so you need to make sure what you're testifying to is true. Oh my goodness, I'm sweating. Because I'm thinking, I've got these, percentages, and I'm hoping I'm not misleading anybody. Well, right before us, some people got up to speak. Bless that man's heart. He's sitting next to me going, Tracy, stop, breathe. They're lying. They're flat out sitting up there in line. We've got them on video. We have them on YouTube. And they are lying right there, looking straight at those people in that committee. And I thought, well, this is one reason we lose. But it's not going to change how I behave. So I've got to find another strategy. So the next year, we made sure we had binders of everybody's testimony. We made sure we tried to do our best to sprinkle people throughout there. We made sure that anyone that was on that committee, we had talked to them. We were praying for each of these people by name. We were targeting their districts. We're doing that again this session. Going into session, I want a contact person in every Senate district, We have a prayer group that we work with. Texas TXPN is a group that goes every Monday during session and prays. And I work with them as the governmental liaison. So we send them prayer requests that go out all over the state. But they also take action items because these people are engaged. So right there, we have a team all around the country, the state. So as soon as we have a problem or we have an action item during session, we're able to push it through with these people. And if we have a contact in each Senate district, I'm hoping that'll help us target people. We had a state rep sitting on that committee. He's a conservative. No, he has an R behind his name. He was so ugly to our guy that was up speaking. And we were just shocked that he would be so, it was so bad that when we went in their office the next day, even his staff was apologizing. But what we finally had to do was really make the effort by going to the county chair in his district, going to the tea parties in his area, and work those people, and they understood, they were on board with ALAC, and they were making the phone calls. And they need to hear your voice. So don't ever shy back from that. Whether it's going down there for a trip, maybe you go one time in the session. Them seeing your face makes a difference. We're trying to work with other groups on religious liberty bills right now, and I work a lot with two women from CWA, which is Concerned Women in America, and we, in our mind, we're like, you know what, if we go down unified, if you're a legislator and I'm the ALAC lady, after a while, they're going to go, well, it's her, and that's about it. Well, that's not the same impact. If you go down connected with these groups, and there's 5 or 6 of your grassroots organizations standing together on something, they're going to pay more attention. And that's, I think, what I'm excited about next session, because since this session goes for 6 months, but she'll affirm you work on this stuff all the time. You're always working on, can you find more people to testify? When it comes to ALAC, I don't know, it's such a legal, at first it sounds very simple. Let's just get rid of any law that's not American law. But you start opening that up, and you've got so many people that are in the business environment, or your lawyers that say, well, they're under contract. You have the Jewish community, you have canonical law, you have, it goes all over the place. So what we realized was, most of these cases we saw about, I'm not testifying, so y'all won't arrest me for perjury, but it's somewhere in the 80 percentile of these cases have to do with marriage contracts. We've had people talk to us about German law, issues there, Egyptian law, Pakistani law. We had people come in and testify. We didn't even invite them. 3 lawyers came in. This was huge for us. And we're in the process with cases from other countries just like this, and said it would help to codify this issue. It would just make it clear for these judges. We're having judges actually now coming to us, coming to state legislators and saying, we're having this problem, we're seeing it in our court. I know people go, well, that would never happen here. It has. Excuse me. The other thing is, we don't even know how much it's happened because you only have the cases reported from appellate level on up. So we don't know what's happening on the cases down from there. But we do know that we have cases here. How many of you remember Massengale when he ran for Supreme Court? They brought that up. Excuse me. It was interesting because the judge that was in office never wanted to answer that question when there's vetting. But she was all for it during the legislative session because she knew it would rile people up. And sadly enough, talking to Massengale, and we sent one of our attorneys, and they sat and talked and had a really good conversation. He said, this would help. It would make a difference. So There's so many pieces that go into trying to pass this piece of legislation that seems so straightforward and so simple that it kind of sometimes can be frustrating because you're thinking, if this is so clear, what are we going to do about some of the other issues, like the grid? How many of you have heard about the issue with the grid? Okay. This one kind of fell. Here again is an opportunity. We had someone come in and speak that worked for Frank Gaffney, and we decided we were up in our area to invite some of the legislators, and at the last minute I thought, I wonder if Senator-elect Bob Hall would come. And I love this man. That man never stops working. I do not know when he sleeps. He's at everything. We were in Houston one time and saw him. I'm like, do you ever stop? You and Kay. And he was there, and he was sitting in this front row, and this young man's presenting this. We were really going to talk about ALAC, but he's presenting the issues on, he kind of starts to talk about the grid. And as soon as he does, Bob Hall's hand goes up. He said, when I was in the military, I worked on the EMP project. Thank you, God. We had no idea. We were actually leaving there to go to lunch with Representative Tam Parker because he was going to help us in the House. And so Senator Bob Hall's like, well, do you mind if I come along? Oh, no, you are now the main attraction. And let me tell you, the man's not stopped working. We were able to host it was a 2-day symposium in Austin. We had about 80 attendees. We had them across the board legislatively. We had people in from ERCOT. I mean, this was important, and he's not backing off. He actually tracked down Governor Abbott at an event and said, your office is telling me you're going to make this a priority. May I get this out to the public? He said, sure. So Governor Abbott and he have had this conversation and fixing the grid. Now, there's a variety of ways we can go about it, but it can be done. And we can do it on multiple levels. Cyber, hardening. It's not just the cameras. We talked with a company out of Los Alamos, and they showed us their project. They're brilliant scientists who are patriots, who want to help, and this is cost effective. Let me just compare cost effective to no lights, no nothing. We had 2 men come to the symposium, and they were with the emergency response unit. They were like, we're here for the morning, and our boss, we're kind of joking, like, we're going to leave after that, and our boss will think we're here. I was like, okay, wait till you hear the first session. They come out. We're staying for 2 days. They thought, we can use our cell phones if something goes wrong, or we can, no, cars, you name it. So, again, you would think this might need, the fine-tuning on what's it going to cost. Those things are important. But the grid itself, why, if we're the only state that has a grid, the rest of the country works off of 2 grids, why wouldn't we want to take some precautions? Why wouldn't we, when we know there's cyber attacks, why wouldn't we, when we know out in Metcalf, California, someone got through and, by the grace of God, missed a transformer? Why is this that we're the tinfoil hat brigade? Because we want constitutional rights guaranteed for anyone that goes into a courtroom. We want to make sure our grid is secure, and actually, it would be good for business. If we're set, this seems like pro for everybody. So we go on. Religious liberties for Eagle Forum, whatever is going to be out there that is good legislation. I know people right now are asking, what do you think about this? And I said, I can tell you what I generally think, but I want to be really careful. I want to see the bill. I know with our own bill, we've gotten a bill back before, and I'm like, I don't recognize this. So before commenting on anything in particular, I think it's so important to get that bill, read that bill. If you have questions, talk to the legislator, talk to the authors on that bill, then start your battle plan. I just think you're going to get so much further in trying to communicate with these folks if we're more, as was mentioned earlier, let's be prudent about how we respond to the battles. There's a lot going on with religious liberties. How many of you are concerned with what's going on? How many of you look at this and go, it's just a bathroom deal, let's just let it go? Every time I see that on Facebook or social media, but when you see it, we do have to realize social media is operating, and there's a whole generation, from probably your age on back. I mean, that's the way y'all are going to communicate, and it's just going to keep changing. I was saying earlier, when we all get finally on Facebook, the kids go, they're here, and they move on to Twitter or Instagram. We start showing up there, they're just going to go somewhere else, which is what kids do. I mean, that's what we did. But we've got to be part of social media. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. But we need to engage. And what's been interesting is when I'm out there seeing, again, a boy, a young man, a man at a gym, going into a girl's locker room. Does that seem okay? Does that seem normal? But why are we having these discussions? We're not even just having discussions. We're in a battle. We're in a battle over something that my eyes cross. I look at it and think, you're going to go on a band trip. He's going to feel like a girl today and want to sleep in that room, and y'all have to let him because that's what the law says. Do you know there were little schools in this? Schools that the school districts were tiny. Back last November, we're being told. But there was a law firm that went in and they were saying, well, these are the new rules coming down the pipe. This is what you need to do to be compliant, and giving them training. So you've got a little school out in the middle of nowhere getting training for all the transgender children that are going to come through there. Now, but we're the nuts. That's what I struggle with. That's what's concerning. That is when you look at something and you think, how did we go so far off the road? But, as was stated earlier, my hope, obviously, driving down, a friend of mine had changed his Facebook thing, and it probably won't translate as well as me saying it, but when I saw it, I laughed, and it was a sad laugh. He has Benghazi, but the H is the Hillary H, and then underneath it says the H is silent. But you know what? Whether it's Hillary or whether it's Trump, we're still heading down the same path at a pretty fast clip. So what do? I personally look around this room and think, if we're Gideon, 300 men. This room right here, you could do a lot of damage. Our faith is not in man. I know we have to take action. You are talking to a mother with 7 children. I homeschool. I know you have to take action. But I'm not afraid. Don't be afraid. We are not given a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. So I want to encourage you. We'll be down there. My kids, we school around that. It is that important. And we will be down there. We will be working on the conservative causes that are important, that we know we can work hard and work with these guys that are down there. My favorite thing that we do is we pray. If you're interested, we have a prayer page. It's private, but we want to have people join. All it is we are posting scripture and prayer requests, and people just pray. There's no discussion on policy. It is to pray for our leaders. And I cannot tell you, just 2 quick stories to wind down here. And I want to show you the power of taking action. Before the first one is I get a call on a late Friday, I think it was Friday or Saturday, and it's Frank Gaffney. He says, they're going to put a bill through. That was McCall. They're going to put a bill through Department of Homeland Security. And what it's going to create is a violent extremism group. So they'd be putting money into this violent extremism committee. You all would be classified as, yes. So they were going to put this on a calendar to pass through on a Monday when nobody was going to know. So Frank calls the homeschool mom, you understand, Saturday, leave me alone. And he says, we got a problem. And he explains what it is, and I'm like, you aren't here. I know what this means. And so I had to pray. I had no idea what to do. I mean, we have a mailing list and we could get calls, but this is a country issue. God puts in my heart Debbie Jordanis, who has a radio show, and Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Long story short, we tried to meet that man years ago. I was so sad. It's the only time I ever got lost in my life. I had my car loaded with children and we got lost. Now we get to work with him on the grid. They have been so supportive and so helpful, bringing some really, Trent Franks, bringing them to the table to help. I sent him a message. Within 20 minutes, he says, not on my watch. He had written an article, put it on his Facebook, and immediately had like 8,000 likes. Monday, Debbie had it on a radio show. Monday, I get a call from Frank. He's getting on a plane. He's leaving. He goes, just want you to know, we got a call. They don't know how people found out, but he pulled it. I'm like, people found out because some little housewife called a couple of friends that God put on her heart, and people went to work across this country. The last thing, to me, one of the most precious things, was during the primary, there were a lot of good candidates. Thomas McNutt, just a lot of good folks that were getting beat down. I mean, it was a hard race. It was a hard time. We have prayer calls, and we've prayed with just a variety of different people. God just opened a door, and we pray with them. So that night, we offered it to any candidates, anybody that wanted to be on there. And we thought, we'll get a few. We had 22. 2 of them were in the Supreme Court race, all the way down to our sheriff. Of course, we're going to get a great sheriff in Terry County. I'm very excited. I think he's Texas Sheriff, Bill Wayborn. So we get on the call, and that night we had a good group from all around Texas praying. And there were a couple of these ladies, boy, it was lighting their hair on fire. I mean, they were praying. I thought, this may make some people a little uncomfortable. And I heard a couple of dings, like when somebody's hanging up. I thought, well, we maybe lost those 2 guys. But, I'm glad they were on the call. And as we prayed for that hour, it was so clear. It was just so clear that there's still hope, and our hope is in him. And I have to tell you, when I got the report back of who was on the calls, the 2 people that jumped off the calls were actually friends of mine that were prayer leaders that prayed and had to go pick their kids up. These other guys had stayed on till the very end. So I think we have, it's not just that we're going to Austin and trying to pass legislation. It's not that we're just, trying to get our schools and our economy and everything back on track. We're really furthering the gospel of Christ. I mean, we are his ambassadors. So I just want to encourage you and call you today to be an ambassador, to stand for those things that matter, that the things that make you go, we got this. We do. We are backed by the word. We are backed by his throne. And I believe, and I will not give up until they haul me off and put me in a grave, that this is not my home, but he gave us this nation, and we will safeguard it. Thank you.
Tracey, thank you. Just a couple of things, and we're going to let Tracey end with a question. First of all, we know and love Kathy Adams, but I think she knew what she was doing, so we're just going to give you our vote of confidence. Thank you. Just a couple of real quick announcements in case you have to leave. Tracey does have on the back table a newsletter, and then I think you also mentioned you have a website they can go to or something.
We're getting it put up. It's still under Texas, TexasEagle.org, but right now we're just redoing that.
Okay, well, she does have a newsletter back there, so grab that from her. Just a couple of our own reminders. There's sandwiches in the back, and they usually discount them if you want to take one home for dinner tonight. we have got, as I said, just a very busy week. Let me just run a couple of these things by you once again, and then, like I said, we'll let Tracey end on a question. Take these home. There is so much on them. Matt Schaefer has Kelly Shackelford on Monday night. As they used to say, your dance card will be full this week. Monday night, Matt Shackelford and with Matt Schaefer. See Hunter in the back if you can help, 10 to 2, or really anything, cleaning up anything. They need your help desperately. Tuesday night, election watch party at Staybridge, starting at 6:30 with our own Louie and Larry. We love those guys. Judge Christie's going to be there, but just a lot of them are coming by to watch. Put that on your dance calendar for Tuesday. And then on Friday night, Jim Snow, he announced a couple of meetings. It has the Veterans Dance. That is Friday night. That is going to be so exciting. I'm actually going, Jim. I just haven't signed up yet. So see Jim back there for details. There's been a lot out on that, but that is going to be exciting for the veterans. And so we're going to let you end with a question. And this is, what can be done to ensure that local judges can find that the best interest of a child is to be placed or either placed or adopted into a home of traditional marriage? Did that make sense? So what can be done to ensure that local judges can find that the best interest of a child, or can convince, I guess, the best interest of a child is to be placed or adopted into a home of traditional marriage? That's hard for judges to hold that, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it could be something we bring up. I'm not sure from a legal standpoint. There was a judge in here, he left. But, you know, we're talking through so many different, with these groups like Texas Values and First Liberty and Concerned Women of America. We've been meeting on a regular basis talking about a number of religious liberty issues, and that kind of falls under there as far as, like, I know we're working for the Home Act, which is protecting when you adopting children, choosing not to adopt them out to anybody but traditional marriage. So I don't have a direct answer for that, but that's something to really think about, because I know we're looking at how is all of this impacting city workers, judges, also, you know, with businesses and schools and all of this. So I really, whoever asked that, thank you. It's something I will take when we have our meeting and raise that question.
I think it actually was a judge. So we'll get into
okay.
And also we're going to ask this last question, but Tracey will be here for a few minutes afterwards, so please direct your questions to her, and she'll be glad to chat with you for a few. We've heard reports that Muslim immigrants are being brought into the country, being hired as guards in our prisons for 2 years, and then becoming citizens. Is this true? I don't know if you know anything about that, or...
I can ask. We work with a number of people. The night the shooting happened in Dallas, one of these guys called and he said, I'm telling you, the guy that's on TV right now, that had the gun that said, I turned my gun in. And we were all like, this seems a little set up. He goes, that guy's Sharia compliant. And I'm like, I don't know that. Well, sure enough, we found out later he and his brother and the guy worked with the guy that established that walk, who bills himself as a gay Muslim pastor. So y'all figure that one out. But as far as that happening, I don't know for sure. I can ask again, and I can let Joanne know, because we work with so many people that work with law enforcement and help train them and trying to do their best. We're trying to get teens trained in different counties with former FBI agents. One of the guys actually wrote the manual that's been redacted out by Brennan. I mean, he wrote how to fight jihad, and it's been redacted out, but he does training, and a lot of times when he goes to do the training for the police or the sheriffs, the group CARE will come in and cause a ruckus or sue, and they'll drop his training, which is very sad because it's excellent training. So we're trying to help him get to these different places. I do know somebody went down in Austin, or I do know there are definitely people coming here. There was a judge that made a comment, I don't know if y'all saw this, that we only had like 1% from Syria were Christian, and he found that very disturbing, that if we were actually trying to move people out of Syria, why was that not a higher number based on their population within the Syrian community? So I can't answer that directly, but there are some interesting things happening. There is a compound outside of Houston, I believe, and it's guarded and it's got refugees, and it's very odd. This was a man that went out with the sheriff. So, you know,
Things
again,
we don't know.
There's things we
Yeah.
don't know, and then things we want to be very careful on. So I can't say for sure that's happening.
Sure thing. We want to thank Tracy, and also we just. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, most of you may not be aware of it, but we do know that some Muslims have been hired in around Tennessee. You know, there's quite a few of the state prisons down at Tennessee Colony, which is near Palestine, and also at Montalba. We understand from a friend that there's kind of a settlement of mobile homes that's been taken over by these Muslims that have come in to work down there. Now, the one reason we know that the Muslims have been hired in is that our granddaughter worked as a guard down there for a while, and they brought some in from Africa and to work. Now, I think the question that we really have is this really true that these guards, if they work there 2 years, are they really being given American citizenship? That's the question. We would like very much to have that investigated.
And that's what Tracy was saying she'll look into and find out if there's an answer to that, because right now I don't know that anyone truly knows if that is the case.